In a high-stakes moment of tension between federal authority and local unrest, President Donald Trump publicly indicated that he sees no current reason to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota, even after threatening to do so just a day earlier. The development comes amid widespread protests in Minneapolis over aggressive immigration enforcement operations, including confrontations between federal agents and demonstrators that have left several people wounded or killed. The Insurrection Act is a law passed in the early 19th century that gives a U.S. president extraordinary authority to deploy military forces domestically when state and local authorities are unable or unwilling to maintain order. Under normal American law, the military is barred from performing domestic law enforcement due to the Posse Comitatus Act. However, the Insurrection Act serves as a narrow exception, allowing active duty troops or federalized National Guard units to operate in U.S. cities and towns under dire circumstances. That law has been used sporadically throughout American history, but has not been broadly invoked in recent decades. Trump's comments reflect the complexities of using such sweeping authority in a democratic society. On Friday, as he left the White House for Palm Beach, Florida, he was asked by reporters whether he planned to act on his previous warnings to use the Insurrection Act. He responded bluntly that while the law remains very powerful and available, there's no reason right now to use it, but he added, "If I needed it, I'd use it." This backtracking highlights the political and legal dilemmas facing the administration as protests continue to simmer. The context for this shift stems from escalating demonstrations in Minneapolis, where federal immigration agents have been conducting wide-ranging operations against undocumented migrants. Those operations followed an incident in which an Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) officer fatally shot a 37-year-old American woman, triggering outrage and mass protests. In the days that followed, federal agents also shot and wounded a Venezuelan man during another encounter. These incidents have intensified public fury over the federal presence and tactics in the city. Earlier in the week, Trump had posted on his social media platform, asserting that professional agitators and insurrectionists were attacking federal officers and warning that if state and local leaders did not control the unrest, he would consider invoking the Insurrection Act to quickly put an end to the chaos. That stark warning drew immediate national attention because deploying the military on U.S. soil against the backdrop of civil unrest revives long-dormant debates about federal power, civil liberties, and the proper use of force. However, by Friday, Trump appeared to step back from that stance. Interpreting his remarks, analysts say he may have realized that invoking the Insurrection Act could escalate tensions further rather than quell them. Civil liberties advocates and some legal scholars have warned that using the military in civilian settings could undermine constitutional rights and blur the line between civilian policing and martial law. Critics argue that labeling protesters as insurrectionists when many are expressing grievances about federal enforcement could set a dangerous precedent that chillingly expands executive power. Local leaders from Minnesota have offered a range of responses to the situation. Minneapolis's mayor and Minnesota's governor have both expressed frustration with the violent incidents and called for calm and de-escalation. At times, they have embraced differing tones, urging peaceful protests while condemning aggressive enforcement tactics in an attempt to navigate the volatile environment without inviting federal military intervention. The backdrop to this crisis also includes legal scrutiny of the actions taken by officials. Federal authorities are reportedly investigating whether Minnesota's governor and Minneapolis's mayor impeded immigration enforcement efforts, adding another layer of political tension. Such investigations, while separate from the question of invoking the Insurrection Act, underscore the complexity of federal-local relations in the current climate. Citizens across the political spectrum have reacted strongly to both the protests and the government's response. Supporters of the demonstrations argue that reclaiming public space and pushing back against perceived abuses by immigration and customs enforcement are forms of legitimate civic engagement, not insurrection. On popular television programs, commentators have decried equating peaceful protest and civil rights expression with violent uprising, reminding audiences that dissent is a foundational element of democratic societies. At the same time, some local residents and commentators fear that continued clashes between protesters and federal agents could spiral into further violence. Police leaders in the area have warned that if rhetoric continues to escalate unchecked, the region could be pulled toward broader conflict rather than negotiation and cooperation. The political ramifications of using or threatening to use the Insurrection Act are also significant. Some lawmakers, including members of the president's own party in Congress, have expressed hesitancy or outright skepticism about deploying the military on U.S. soil in this context. Republican leaders like the Senate Majority Leader have said they trust local law enforcement to manage the tensions and hope that normal civil institutions can restore calm without invoking extraordinary measures. Others suggest that any hint of military deployment could deepen partisan divides and erode public trust in government institutions. Legal experts emphasize that the Insurrection Act was crafted for extreme scenarios, such as widespread insurrections where local authorities are overwhelmed or explicitly refuse to enforce federal law. In historical application, presidents have invoked the act only in rare and severe crises, like violent riots or insurgent uprisings that threaten the constitutional order. Absent clear evidence of organized rebellion, many argue that the current unrest doesn't meet the traditional threshold for military intervention. These debates reflect long-standing tensions within American governance, between federal authority and state autonomy, between civil liberties and public safety, and between executive power and local control. Minneapolis, because of its recent history of high-profile police violence and community activism, has become a focal point for these broader national tensions. Even without invoking the Insurrection Act, the presence of federal agents and the ongoing protests underscore deeper societal fractures over immigration policy, law enforcement conduct, and how best achieve public order without sacrificing constitutional protections. The situation remains fluid, with community leaders, protesters, law enforcement, and national political figures all navigating a charged atmosphere where misinformation and deep distrust complicate attempts at resolution. As discussions continue and officials monitor the situation, Trump's announcement that there is no immediate reason to use the Insurrection Act may serve as a temporary de-escalation. Yet the fact that it was even considered illustrates how severe and contentious the confrontations in Minneapolis have become.